Hello dear Dota 2 community and welcome to my guide to Visage, the bound form of Necro'lic. As a little introduction, I would like to say that Visage is my absolute favorite hero in Dota 2. And even though he brings so much versatility to the table and he's so much fun to play, he gets ignored by both professional players and pop players. Well, the latter doesn't really come as a surprise, considering the current meta. Or any meta in that sense. Anywho, in this guide I'm gonna highlight Visage's lore, Visage's role and abilities, items to build on Visage, when to pick Visage, when not to pick Visage, advanced tactics, and Visage's current standing. With this guide, I just want to shed some light on Visage, a hero that is highly underplayed, and maybe this guide is gonna make you want to try him out for yourself. Now to bring you into the proper mood, let's check out Visage's lore. Perched atop the entrance to the narrow maze sit the looming shapes of sneering gargoyles, the paths into the hereafter forever in their gaze. Beasts and birds, men and monsters, all creatures that die and choose to travel beyond must someday pass beneath their sight. For an untethered spirit, the decision to journey through the veil of death is irrevocable. When chance comes, and by craft or cunning some restless soul escapes their hells and heavens, it is the dreaded gargoyle Visage, the bound form of the eternal spirit Necro'lic, who is dispatched to reclaim them. Ruthless and efficient, unhindered by the principles of death and fatigue, Visage stalks its prey without mercy or end, willingly destroying all which may give shelter to the fugitive essence. That which flaunts the laws of the afterlife may never rest, for while it is true that the dead may be revived, it is only a matter of time before Visage finds and returns them to their proper place. Now that we are in the proper mood, let's look at Visage's role and his abilities. Visage is a ranged intelligence hero that is very versatile in the way you play him. Visage works as a support, mid laner, carry, and a tank to a certain degree. He has a strength gain of 2.4 per level, an intelligence gain of 2.5 per level, and an agility gain of 1.3 per level. Another strength of his is that he has an attack range of 600. Which means his base attack range is higher than snipers. Before we get into Visage's roles, let's check out his abilities. His first ability is a unit target ability.
Grave Chill.
Grave Chill absorbs the enemy's movement and attack speed. Not only that, but it also applies the drain stats for Visage. This skill is great to pick up at level 1 as it can secure you a rune. It can also be used to pick up fleeing enemies and in teamfights to render the enemy carry either completely useless or make them less of a threat by lowering their attack speed. Visage's second ability is another unit target ability,
Soul Assumption.
This is Visage's nuke and the spell that makes you a threat throughout the early and mid game. When skilled, 6 bars appear over Visage. Every time an enemy or friendly hero takes 110 damage in a 1375 radius around Visage, one of those bars will fill white, indicating that you have 1 charge. 1 charge of Soul Assumption deals 65 damage. At level 1, you can have a maximum of 3 charges, meaning that you can deal 195 magical damage within a cast range of 900. On its max level, you can gain up to 6 charges, allowing you to nuke an enemy for 390 magical damage. Be aware though, that every charge only lasts for 6 seconds. If you don't use the charge within that time frame, the stack disappears. As I said, this is your secret weapon in the early and mid stages of the game. The nuke damage from Soul Assumption is always underestimated by enemy players, allowing you to nuke them to the Nether Realm with ease. With Soul Assumption skilled, it is, on paper, practically impossible for you to lose a fight early game, since every time an enemy or an allied hero gets attacked, you gain charges for Soul Assumption. You can always throw more damage at the enemies than they are able to dish out at you, but more on that later. His third ability is his passive, Gravekeeper's Cloak. Gravekeeper's Cloak, much like Soul Assumption, is layer based, meaning that you can have a maximum of 4 layers. With each layer, Visage gains, at max level, 6 armor per layer and 20% magic resist per layer. The layer is removed when Visage takes 15 or more damage. Since Visage is a pretty fragile hero in the early and mid-game stages, Gravekeeper's Cloak sort of compensates for your low HP by giving you a pretty severe armor and magic resist buff. This is also the spell that makes it eligible for Visage to be played as a tank. Also, if you are more interested in numbers, without any items on max level on Gravekeeper's Cloak, you get 24 armor and 82% of total magic resistance. His ultimate is his trademark and probably the #1 reason why pop players are afraid of playing him: Summon Familiars. When used, Visage gains 2 flying gargoyles that aid him in combat. These 2 familiars are great for split pushing, scouting and obviously fighting. Like most of Visage spells, the familiar's damage also works on a charge or layer system. At max level, 1 familiar deals 22 damage. Each familiar can have a maximum of 7 charges that recharge every 15 seconds, which means that they deal 1392 total damage on max level. Holy spit. Also, these flying beasts attack like a machine gun, firing in rapid succession, making it easy to chip away at a tower or an enemy. That is not all though. These familiars have no attack range limitation like Lone Druid's Bear, for instance. You can farm bot lane with Visage while harassing an enemy in his jungle or aiding your ally's top lane. Still not convinced? Your familiars have the ability to fly over terrain, making them the best scouting ability in the game and, if used correctly, a literal nightmare for the enemy jungler, and a great way to gain vision when an enemy tries to flee away from a lost teamfight. Still not enough? These familiars are permanent. They don't disappear after a certain time, they only die when an enemy kills them. Also noticeable is that your familiars are immune to magic damage. Wait, there is one more thing. Your familiars have one active ability called Stone Form. When used, your familiars will smash down to the ground, stunning enemies in a small radius for 1.5 seconds at max level and damaging them for 140 damage. While they are in stone form, you can't move them and they can't attack, yet they are invulnerable and fully regenerate their health and charges. After 8 seconds, the familiars will leave the stone form, making them movable and killable again. If you already like the idea of 2 of those beautiful familiars roaming around and terrorizing the enemy team, here is something that will make the enemy team hoist their white flag. If you pick up Aghanim's Scepter, you don't have 2, but 3 familiars flying around. With so many on the verge of being OP qualities, comes some major downsides. The first thing being that your familiars are as squishy as a courier. No matter how much damage an enemy does, your familiars get destroyed by 3 attacks. The second thing is that each time a familiar dies, the enemy who deals the last hit gains a bounty of 100 gold and 41 XP, so feeding them to the enemy is a no-go in all stages of the game. Also, your familiars never auto-attack. So if you use them to split push, you always have to make sure that your familiars attack a creep wave or the tower to avoid them just staying around. Now that we covered Visage's abilities, let's go to his playstyle and roles. I'm gonna split this section up into the different roles he can fill, so I'm gonna start with the most common way that people play him, as a support. When you play Visage as a support, you want to play as aggressive as possible in the early stages. Your skill set not only allows you to do it, it also demands you to do it. Grave Chill ensures that the enemy carry loses a lot of his attack speed when they or you initiate. And since every time they damage your carry for 110 damage or your carry damages them for 110 damage, you quickly gain the necessary charges for Soul Assumption to delete their life bars, save your carry and walk out the fight victoriously. Thanks to his skill set, it is also feasible for Visage to help out other lanes if necessary. Whether it being securing a kill and thus a lead for your mid laner, or helping out your solo top laner by slowing them down and using their souls to your advantage. As soon as you reach level 6, you have your familiars. Make sure to summon your familiars as soon as you hit level 6 to have them off cooldown faster. We'll get into more detail later. When you have your familiars, it depends on the current situation you are in. Ask yourself how you want to use your familiars. Does the enemy team have a jungler? If you have the necessary micro, send your familiars through the jungle. Try to scope out the enemy jungler to either kill him if he's low, steal his farm, or simply prevent his jungle camps from spawning. Also works with the enemy support. Just send your familiars into the spawn box of the creeps he uses to pull and prevent him from ever pulling again. You can also, if you have the proper micro, send your familiars to the mid lane or any other lane to help pushing the lane to scout out for ganks that might ensue or initiate with their stun. In team fights, it is important for you to keep your cool and that you get your skills off at the right targets and that you position yourself correctly. If your team has no one to initiate, go in with your familiars and make sure that you stun correctly. Remember that each time you use Stone Form, you stun the enemy for 1.5 seconds at max level. So stun with your first familiar, wait a little bit, and then stun again with the other familiar. So you get a total of 3-second AoE stun. Then make sure you use Grave Chill on the enemy carry or whoever is the highest damage dealer. Right after that, you should have more than enough stacks for Soul Assumption. Use that either on their carry, support, or whoever your team decides to focus. If your familiars are back up, chase down remaining enemies, try to cut their path if they try to run away in the fog of war. Inevitably, you will kill steal with Visage. Your Soul Assumption grants you a lot of kills in the early game given the damage it deals. And it will score you a good amount of kills late game, since it has a 900 cast range. By the way, Sniper with Take Aim maxed has a 950 attack range. Items to build on Visage. First things first, no matter where you play Visage, the first core item, whether you play him as a carry, support, or tank, is Aghanim Scepter. Aghanim Scepter adds one more familiar to your ultimate, but more on that later. After Aghanims, it depends on what you play Visage as. As a support, you can either pick up Power Treads or Arcane Boots. Arcane Boots might be more beneficial since you can turn them into Guardian Greaves and spamming your spells as Visage can be pretty costly to your mana pool. Traditional support items work perfectly on Visage. As mentioned, Mechanism should be picked up every single time. After Mechanism, it depends on the enemy team and whether or not you want to transition into a carry or not. If you want to stay support, you can go for Solar Crest or Assault Cuirass or Shivas if the enemy team is too tanky or deals too much DPS, therefore the Solar Crest. You can get a Pipe or Orchid to deal with those pesky magic damage dealers, or Yules and Scythe to get rid of DPS dealing problems. Rod of Athos and Force Staff is also an interesting combination. While you have your Grave Chill to slow enemies down, it is blocked by Lincoln Sphere. So having an extra movement speed slow and an item that allows you to catch up on fleeing enemies is always good. As far as your skill build is concerned, max Soul Assumption first, then Grave Chill, then Gravekeeper's Cloak. Now let's take a look at Visage as a carry. When you play Visage as a carry, never forget that your attack speed and damage is atrocious in the early stages. You don't deal damage with auto attacks, but with soul assumption. As a support, you want someone who can go aggressive and is able to do damage, like Sand King, Ogre Magi, Bane, etc. Heroes who have a stun are also beneficial, since they make sure that you can get in range for Grave Chill. In a nutshell, during the lane phase and mid-game phase, you play Visage basically like you would play him as a support. You try to bully the enemy out of the lane and get a couple of kills. Item-wise, I personally play carry Visage like any other long-range carry. Start off with Ring of Aquila. It gives you some nice stats in the beginning as well as a good aura. As your first core item, you should always go for Aghanim Scepter, but I will go over that later. And then for either Desolator, Mjolnir or Daedalus. Desolator if the enemy tank is giving you a hard time or if he's becoming a threat, Mjolnir for more attack speed and quicker charges for your soul assumption, and Daedalus if you want to chop down the enemy faster. Now I know, your attack speed is horrendous throughout the entire game, so playing Visage as a carry with standard carry items might not seem like the best idea. But keep in mind that you always use Grave Chill in the beginning of every teamfight. So you get the attack speed from the enemy carry in the best scenario. The more they have, the better. Picking up a survivability item after your second core item is always a good idea. Whether it be BKB, if they focus you with spells, Assault Cuirass or Heart, make sure that you get one of those, because those items will help you surviving teamfights if you make mistakes in positioning yourself or if you get picked off by the enemy team. And never forget your familiars. No matter how you play Visage, always try to stun as many enemies as possible. Drain the attack speed of the enemy carry, in the best scenario. Use Soul Assumption on their carry, as I said, 900 cast range or support, and watch them starting their path through the narrow maze. As a carry, I would go for Power Treads. After Power Treads, you need to decide if you want to be a traditional carry or if you want to nuke the enemies down. The latter is usually used when you play a mid lane. For a traditional build, I would suggest Desolator, Mjolnir and, depending on the enemy team, Heart of Tarask or BKB for survivability. If you want to go the nuking route, which is magic damage oriented, your core items need to be Dagon and Ethereal Blade. Boot wise, since you're gonna need a lot of mana, you should go for Arcane Boots. As a last item, you can build whatever your team needs. For your skill build, go for the same skill build that you would use as a support. Visage as a tank. I personally am not too hyped for Visage as a tank, to be honest. And that's simply due to the fact that without items you are not as tanky as traditional tanks like Bristleback, Tiny Magnus and the likes. You are forced to get kills in order to get the necessary items to make Visage tanky again. While Gravekeeper's Cloak grants you a total of 24 armor and 82% of total magic resistance on max level, each layer gets removed whenever Visage takes 15 damage. So it's not as reliable as you might like. If the enemies don't use all their spells on you while Gravekeeper's Cloak is still up, if they choose to ignore you, you can't use your tanky potential to its full capacity. Sure, you still render the enemy carry semi-useless with Grave Chill and net yourself some kills with Soul Assumption, but your team might be overwhelmed by nukes and damage over time by the enemy. And when you don't have tanky items, it is easy for the enemy team to finish you off when you are the sole survivor. So it is a gamble to play Visage as a tank. If you are not fully convinced that you are a top-notch Visage player and that you can easily get some kills early game, don't play him as a tank. Should be self-explanatory. After Power Treads, go for Vanguard. Build that Vanguard into Crimson Guard. Then, if you get the kills, try and get Heart of Tarask. If you happen to struggle to get the necessary gold, pick up Solar Crest. And then, again, depending on the enemy team and who is the biggest threat, so Assault Cuirass Orchid, Pipe, Scythe, it depends. Skill build wise, you need to make some adjustments by maxing out Gravekeeper's Cloak first, Soul Assumption second, and Grave Chill last. When to pick Visage. Picking Visage all depends on what your team and the enemy team picks. The best team partners are heroes who can deal a lot of damage in a short amount of time. The reason for that is simple. Soul Assumption. A couple of heroes I think of are Disruptor, Tiny, Phantom Lancer, Axe, Lion, Lina, just as an example. All of those deal a lot of damage really fast and or over time, making sure that you get your Soul Assumption stacks out. In terms of ideal enemies, one ideal enemy for Visage is Phantom Assassin. You can easily 1v1 a Phantom Assassin before she gets BKB. Even if she has her blur on level 1, 2 or 3, she does damage to you. But you can counter that. You have survivability with Gravekeeper's Cloak and you have enough magical damage to nuke her to the ground. Also, you can drain her attack speed and stun her with your familiars, so she's not a problem. Also techies. Even if he is played very rarely, you might still see him from time to time. Again, your Gravekeeper's Cloak keeps you relatively safe from mines and you get stacks from Soul Assumption whenever you activate them. So if an enemy kites you through the mines, it might actually end up being beneficial for you. So whenever your team consists of heroes that do lots of damage in a short amount of time, release Necro'lic upon the enemy. When not to pick Visage. I said pick Visage when Phantom Lancer is in your team. It's the total opposite of when he's in the enemy team. Visage relies on doing huge amounts of damage to a single target. Since Phantom Lancer can reproduce himself like a rabbit during mating season, it is not possible for Visage to kill him 1v1. Even with your familiars at hand, you just don't deal enough AoE damage to determine who is the real PL. Same story for every hero that has built-in illusions. If they are on your team, great. If they are in the enemy team, you might pick someone else. Lycan is another hero that you shouldn't play Visage against. Since he is immune to slows when he pops his ult, he is just gonna run at you and destroy you once he hits level 6. Your Soul Assumption is also not gonna do anything against him, even though you easily gain the stacks when he feasts on your non-existing flash. Leshrac can also burn through your Gravekeeper's Cloak charges with ease. He has insanely great magical AoE damage, which allows him to burn through your Gravekeeper's Cloak and finish you off from a respectable distance. In a nutshell, when there are illusion-based heroes or heroes with magic resist, consider playing someone else. Advanced Tactics. I already talked a lot about using your familiars properly, but there is one more thing that I want to teach you. We know by now that one familiar stuns the enemy for 1.5 seconds when they use Stone Form. I already said that you should cast your ultimate as soon as it is off cooldown. There is a simple reason for that. If a team fight breaks out, you want your ultimate off cooldown so you can resummon your familiars. Picture this. With Aghanims, you have a 3 times 1.5 second stun. All in all, it's a 4.5 second AoE stun. That in itself is amazing. But if you resummon your familiars right after you used Stone Form on the 3rd familiar, you can use Stone Form again, stunning the enemy again 3 times for 1.5 seconds, making it possible for you to stun the enemy for 9 seconds. To my knowledge, there is no hero in the game that has an AoE stun that lasts for 9 seconds. In order to pull this off successfully, you need to bind all 3 familiars to a hotkey to your liking. In the options, you can bind a key that lets you cycle through all units in that group. Once set, all you have to do is stay calm and hit those stuns 6 times in a row. You don't have to worry about Visage while doing this. Make sure to stay behind with Visage and concentrate on getting those stuns off. Your familiars also function as a great bait. Familiars need 3 hits to get killed and give 100 gold upon death. You can use this to your advantage. If an enemy is alone and is 1 or 2 hits away from killing your familiar, try to bait him into your team. This works especially well if you use a smoke of the seed every day before. Even if the enemy is able to kill the familiar, they will lose it right after your team deals the killing blow on him. Also, here is an interesting example that perfectly highlights why Visage is an awesome pick against Juggernaut. When you don't use Stone Form, your familiars are resistant to magic, which means they can't be targeted by any spells. Here we see Juggernaut using his ultimate. Since the familiars are invulnerable during Stone Form, Juggernaut can't do any damage against them, yet they count as a target for Omnislash. As a conclusion, Juggernaut can't do any damage with his ultimate, which makes him an easy kill once Omnislash is over. Visage's current standing and closing comments. Using the familiars correctly determines how good of a Visage player you are. Using them to their full capacity puts a lot of stress on every player in the enemy team. And when you play Visage for the first time, it might also put a lot of stress on you. You have to worry about not feeding them to the enemy. You need to have more awareness in fights than with any other hero, since you have to make sure that you not get killed while you initiate the stunts with your familiars. Use Grave Chill on the proper enemy, get Soul Assumption out in time, make sure you have enough mana, resummon your familiars to stun the enemies again. That is probably the reason why he is currently holding the place number 107 out of 110 on Dota buff for most played heroes. The only 3 heroes below him are the newest addition to Dota 2 Arc Warden, Oracle, who is also fairly new, and Chen. And the fact that Elder Titan is picked more than Visage disgusts me, by the way. Ugh. Terrible hero. Sorry. While it is easy to net kills as Viper, as basically all you do is right click and an occasional left click for your ultimate, it is a total different experience when you use Visage. When you use your familiars the right way and time your spells correctly, the feeling of winning a teamfight and netting kills knowing that you contributed to that by sheer skill is a great feeling. Just stay calm in the fights. If you think you can't handle harassing the jungle or other lanes with your familiars, keep your familiars with you on your lane. Use them to harass the enemy on your lane. The more you play him, the more easier it gets to use your familiars. The fact that no one plays Visage is actually quite beneficial for you. For one, since no one picks him, you can always pick him yourself without the fear of the enemy team or one of your teammates picking him. Another nice factor about that is that the enemy doesn't know how to deal with you since they probably have never seen a Visage before. Show them the might of Necro'lic. And a little side note. Yes, you learn to have more map and fight awareness with Visage. You also learn how to micro with Visage. What you will not learn is how to play Meepo. It is easier to play with heroes like Beastmaster and Lone Druid, since their summonings also require a good amount of micro, but Meepo is just a whole other level of Dota. Just keep that in mind. And that, dear Dota 2 community, concludes my guide to playing Visage, or my way of playing Visage, I should say. I hope I didn't went off topic too much, and I hope I didn't banter around too much, but I probably did because I just really love Visage, and yeah, it just makes zero sense when I see that like a terrible hero like Elder Titan gets picked more often in pub games or overall than Visage. By the way, at the time I record this, the most recent event that was taking place, the last major event for Dota 2, was Manila Major, and I know that yeah, I think in Dota Pit, Visage was actually picked kind of frequently. And he wasn't picked once in the Manila Major from no team, which is pretty weird actually, because as I said, you know, Visage is a freaking awesome hero. But yeah, the point of this guide is of course to shed some light on Visage. And you know, I've seen a lot of videos and like pictures of Visage where like some smartasses made some comments like, oh, I didn't even know that hero exists, or oh no, we don't talk about Visage because he's not in the game anymore. You know, as I said, smartass comments. Yeah, I hope, you know, that I could shed some light on Visage, and the point of it is that you try Visage out for yourself. You know, I am a 1k player. I'm at the verge of reaching 2k MMR. You know, I'm freaking horrible at the game. But I just play Visage very, very frequently, actually. And in that MMR, you don't... Actually, so you don't see Visage in any MMR, basically. So, yeah, that is your secret weapon, you know? If you watch this guide and you think, you know, it sparked your interest to play Visage, that's exactly the point of this guide, you know? Just play Visage. Probably no one else in your MMR bracket knows how to play him or that he even exists. And, you know, they don't even know his spells. So, you can always surprise them, you know? Soul Assumption is a great skill. It makes great damage early game and mid game, and it always gets underestimated. So... yeah, Visage is gonna net you a lot of kills and a lot of fun. I'm pretty sure about that. So, yeah, just try out Visage for yourself, you know. I bantered around too much. Now it's time for you to try him out yourself. And I hope, probably not gonna happen, but I hope that I'm gonna see more Visages out there in the game. Just don't just play him for one game and drop him because you went like 2-11-5 or something like that. Just play him a couple of times, and I can assure you, once you get all the stuff like set in your mind, like when to grave chill, when to soul assumption, how to use your familiars, and how to harass the enemy with your familiars, then Visage is a nightmare for the enemy team and a lot of fun for you. I'm gonna assure you that. So yeah, thanks again for watching. I hope you found this informative, and I'll see you on the next Dota 2 related video or whatever else you're gonna watch next from me.